You wanted to tell me about a procedure you had done in September.
So I was initially referred to a private healthcare provider for my first consultation, an assessment, if you like. And this was to do with sensitive reproductive service. So when I went for my initial consultation, I was very anxious. The nature of what we were talking about would bring up a lot of past trauma and stuff that really affects my mental health. But this was something physically that I needed to be assessed urgently. So I went there, just expecting it to be a physical consultation mainly. They, told me it would be half an hour, and I had to go on my own because it was COVID times, obviously. But I ended up being there for over 3 hours. Pretty much, maybe 5 minutes it was with my physical health, and the rest, it felt like an interrogation about my mental health and safeguarding issues, being passed to another person, to this person, all sorts of people who wanted to just know more about, I don't know, I feel like I was being prodded with a stick, for them to figure out, how poorly I was and how much of a risk I was. I didn't really know where it was going, but I did try to say that I didn't feel well, I didn't feel safe. I already wasn't doing very well mentally at this time, and this new concern only exacerbated things. But they carried on, and it got to a point where, because of their safeguarding concerns, they wanted to carry out a dash assessment, and this kind of felt like the final straw, not through choice, but I ended up having a really big breakdown, if you want to call it that. I was suffering with really bad psychosis, and again, these people who worked there, they weren't mental health specialists, so I'm not mad at them, but they weren't particularly supportive. They didn't really know what to do. I could hear them speaking negatively about me, with quite judgmental terms. So their response to me being unwell, they called the crisis team. Well, I think they called 111 initially, who told them to call the crisis team. The crisis team said there's nothing we can do. Call us back if it doesn't get any better. So they were like, right, okay, not much we can do, so we'll just stay here. They called 999. 999 said that they couldn't send an ambulance out, as it was urgent, and told them to contact crisis team. They said they already had. This whole to and fro in between all these different people who are supposed to be there to help and tell you what to do because you're not an expert, but they weren't. Eventually, the police came. They were the only people available. Again, not exactly the most appropriate people, but I've had some really good experiences with the police in the past. Anyway, the police came and they restrained me for a number of hours, and they called the crisis team back and asked them to come out. As they said, this was urgent, nothing could be done to help. All the while, I was getting more and more distressed. I was causing more harm to myself through being restrained. And you think of when you're in hospital, there's only a certain amount of time to restrain someone for before giving them a sedative, because it's classed as inhumane and it's only going to cause them more distress and pain. But I'd been restrained for hours now, and I was exhausted, but it just kept re-traumatizing me, re-triggering me. So when crisis team eventually came out, they said, well, there's nothing we can do, you'll have to section her. And the police were kind of confused, like, well, we thought you're the mental health team or the crisis team, surely you're here to solve it, to provide some kind of soothing or solution or something. And they were like, no, we're the street triage team, we don't have the powers to section, you do, so you section her. And they said, okay, well, can you take her to hospital? And they were like, no, you have to wait for transport. So they were there about 5 minutes. They didn't stop to kind of spend some time to try and de-escalate the situation, to speak to me, to have a look into my notes about why maybe this was happening. They didn't pass on any kind of care information to the police about how to help soothe me. Nothing like that was considered. It just, looking back, considering they were meant to be the mental health experts. They didn't bring any kind of insight like that at all. It was very cold. It was very quick and objective. And yeah, looking back, there was a lot of things that were wrong with that. So until it was around 7 hours that I was on the floor of this clinic being restrained. Eventually, we got transport to go to the 136 suite. By the time I got there, I was exhausted. I was extremely distressed, extremely unwell. The police, however, weren't doing anything of their own accord to try and soothe me. Maybe they were, I don't remember, but what stands out in my memory is them making fun of me, taking the mick out of me, taking the mick out of noises I was making when I was crying. One of them was farting in my face, trying to get a response from me. And I just remember thinking how no one understood what was going on. No one cared about what was going on. It didn't matter. I didn't feel like a human being. I just felt like I was this crazy person. It really did not help things. It only made things worse. So I ended up being taken to the Beckman Centre on a section 136. And when I was there, again, things were not good, but long story short, I ended up being assessed and spoke to the psychiatrist and the team there. And again, after a while of using services, you kind of realize you know how to speak about things. You know what they want to hear, essentially. You know what they want to hear to be able to go home or to be able to do whatever you want. And I remember being told, right, okay, you can go. And I was still very unwell. I was feeling very suicidal. I had plans to take my own life. And I was like, great, cool, I can go. Off I go. And one of the nurses who I know from when I was in the Beckman Centre for a long time, she came to me and was extremely lovely. And I'm so grateful to her. But because she knows me so well, she knew that it wasn't safe for me to be leaving. So she sat me down and spoke with me for a very long time and convinced me to get someone to come pick me up. But the rest of the staff, the team, were happy for me to leave. And it was, 3 a.m. They were happy for me to just walk out on my own.
What happened next in terms of the procedure?
That consultation, this private healthcare provider, they refused to treat me, so they referred me back to the NHS. And again, like I said before, it was meant to be an urgent treatment. I'd been told that this kind of thing was going to make me more vulnerable to experiencing psychosis, so it was important that we acted quickly. Again, I told them about how this, brings up stuff from my past that makes me, again, more unwell. So time was really of the essence. So I'll go to this NHS consultation, expecting it to be similar to one I just had. And it was a complete opposite. The surgeon I spoke to, it must have been about 5 minutes, just running over the basic information. There was no nod towards, I have no idea if he read those notes and he chose not to say anything, or if he hadn't read them and didn't know what was going on. So either way, not helpful. But he told me, you shouldn't be here. I'm going on holiday for 2 weeks. So I don't know why you're in this clinic right now, but because you're here, I'll come in on Monday anyway and do the procedure for you. So I had my blood test done, I had my COVID test done, and was, psyching myself up, getting ready for Monday. Fortunately, they had told me I could have this done under general anaesthetic, which was a positive, but I don't think the surgeon had any idea why I needed that. Even though I asked for it, he didn't ask why. So there was no kind of measures in place to think about support for me or involving my mental health team. It just felt very much like it was me on my own trying to figure out a way through it. So it gets to Monday and I'm ready for the procedure, and I get a call from his secretary telling me that I'm going to have the procedure done in 3 weeks' time instead, which felt awful. I felt confused. I felt scared. I was very much in the dark. I didn't know why that was happening. I didn't know if it meant the procedure could still be done in the same way. I didn't know if it was going to affect my health. So many things, and as you can imagine, that waiting time even longer, I just grew more and more anxious and more distressed.
Can you tell me about the operation on your arm?
I had surgery on my arm in November of 2020, and that was, I think, the third operation I've had, basically as a result of damage from cutting and self-harm. The first time I had surgery, I was under section in the Becklin Centre, whereas the most recent one I was at home. So I've had quite a few different experiences, but my first experience was not so positive, and my most recent one was really positive. A lot of things went well. So with my most recent surgery, it was the same surgeon that I've used or been with the whole time, and she has taken a lot of time to get to know me, to talk to me, to explain things to me, to check in about how my mental health is doing. Is she, off her own back, has become aware that my mental health is obviously a really big factor in why I'm there and how I receive the treatment. So her taking the time to speak with me and understand things has been such a big help, not only in helping me feel less anxious about the surgeries and treatments, but feeling understood and feeling supported along the process. My most recent surgery, she checked in with me because she knew I wasn't doing very well mentally. So she wanted to make sure we had a plan in place, with my mental health team, with my care coordinator, my carers around me, just a plan about how we were going to go about things. And she made sure that this most recent surgery was done under general anaesthetic, as opposed to the previous ones that were done under local and ended quite badly. So she made sure that happened for me, which I was very grateful for. And as well as that, she also knew that it was really important to me and my general well-being to be able to exercise. She knew how much sports and physical exercise mattered to me. So she knew that this surgery, getting my arm better, was really important to me. So although a lot of people, could be frightened or put off by me struggling with my mental health, not wanting to come anywhere near me, to do surgery or bring me into clinic, she understood getting that balance right between doing what was best for me in terms of getting the surgery so I could back to life normally, but also making sure there was a plan in place, we weren't taking any silly risks. Another thing that was positive about my most recent surgery was when I came round from the general anaesthetic, I was struggling quite a lot with psychosis, around the general time, but especially when I came round from the anaesthetic. And although I was in the recovery bit at first, and I was taken to just a general ward. And although these nurses and staff, they weren't specialist mental health nurses, the response I had from them was so supportive and kind, and really helped me avoid what could have been, again, another really bad situation. They were completely non-judgmental. An example of one of the nurses, she could tell I was very distressed, and she came over and was being very, a lot of people in those scenarios can be quite patronizing or quite harsh, and she was very soft, very soothing, and I managed to communicate to her. I could tell that things were escalating, and she, helped me figure out what I could do. So she put my headphones on my head for me, put some music on, and just helped me really de-escalate the situation. And the whole rest of the time I was there, they were so lovely and kind, and made me feel like I wasn't being a nuisance, which again is something that's easily done.